Hi guys, it's Lego here. This is the build of my upgrade PC. So it's not a completely new build. It's just a motherboard, RAM and CPU upgrade, and then I'm also upgrading from a normal SSD to NVMe drive, M.2 non-volatile memory express, I think is what NVMe stands for. That's that new hyper-fast SSD type drives. The box or the case is also an old generation Graphite Series 760T. I bought it from a friend. It's really well looked after. I currently have a 800D Obsidian Corsair box myself, but I was looking for something a little bit smaller, a little bit lighter, a bit more artistic, and white, where my Obsidian 800D is it's a 2012 model. It was also the first generation, and that is completely black and matte, which is the look that I wanted at that stage. But I want a new look with the white box, and you will see also it's going to match the motherboard that I got much better. And yeah, I will show you as we go along, do small little pieces, try to keep the video not too long, but just so you can see the build if you're interested in that. It's the first time in a very long time that I'm upgrading motherboard and CPU. I'm currently running still a 3770K Ivy Bridge Intel CPU. So it's also from 2012. I have done a graphics card or a GPU upgrade in 2016, so that's already a little bit old, but because I'm just gaming in 1080p and doing obviously some video processing, etc., it made sense to do a CPU upgrade now, as I'm still quite okay with the GPU. I'm still able to play everything that I like to play on very high or ultra settings without any issues or FPS dropping below 60. So I will do a GPU upgrade, but I'm waiting for NVIDIA to sort out their issues on the 4090s and 4080s, and I might even look at a second-hand 3080, or when the 3080s becomes cheaper, once the 4000 series has been properly launched, then I might look at that as well. Anyway, so that is what it's about. That was the thinking, and I'll show you the rest of the components. So in terms of CPU, I decided to go for the new generation 13700K i7 from Intel. I did a lot of thinking between going Ryzen or Ryzen, like some guys say. Maybe, I don't know what's exactly the right pronunciation. Some guy says Ryzen, some guy says Ryzen. I'll just go with Ryzen, because it's truly risen above Intel in the past few years. But it seems like with these processors, for what I do, which is, I would say, 30 to 40% gaming and 60% other things like media streaming, video encoding, this was a better value for money processor for me. I don't think it's worth to go for the next level, the i9. Not really worth the money for me for the extra performance I will get. And I know the 1700 socket on this processor is end of the range, but like I said, my previous upgrade was 2012. I'm not planning to do another CPU upgrade in the next at least 3 to 5 years. So whether I go Intel or the new AM5 Ryzen, I think 7600 series is what I looked at, which is more or less the price comparator for the i7 13700K, is it doesn't really matter to me, because I'll have to upgrade the board in any case. The only thing that I might not have to upgrade is the RAM, because I decided to go for the DDR5 RAM. So that is the RAM that I got. It's the Trident Z5 and from G-Skill. And the reason why I went with this is I decided to just go all out and get the latest, best memory that I could get. This is the 5600 megahertz. I did look at the 6400, but the guys at the shop and some reviews advised me that they don't get that speed on the RAM. They run into stability issues, and the 5600 was almost, or the 6400 megahertz RAM was almost 30% more expensive. So it did not make sense to me that I'm going to have to run that at 5600 in any case. So that's why I just decided to go for this. And I'm currently running DDR3 at 1600 megahertz. So for me, it's going to make a massive difference. In terms of actual speed, maybe not, because I have 8 rating RAM latency, or I'll get the correct name and put it in the text. So there's a little math that you do, and you times by 2000 and divide by the speed, take the memory access time, and times it by 2000 divided by the speed. And if I do that on my current RAM, I get 10. If I do it on this, I get 12. So even though it's faster in megahertz, the net feel is going to be more or less the same, except that this is obviously a bit better, and it's also more. I currently run 2 8 gig slots, and this is 2 16, which is going to give me a total of 32. If I remember correctly, just quickly double check if that's what I actually got here. Yes, this is 2 16s, which will give me 32 in total. Currently I have 16, so that's going to be a big upgrade for me in any case. So that was the RAM. And then moving on to the motherboard. So I decided to go for the ASUS Prime Z790A with Wi-Fi, obviously. I did look at the P as well, but yeah, it had some features and functions that I wanted. It didn't have. And the price difference between the 790A and 790P for me was actually not that big, so it made good sense for me to go for the A. I did decide to not go for the 690, the Z690 chipset, but the latest Z790. I just thought, well, I want to be able to fully utilize the DDR5. If I had all DDR4 memory, I might have gone for that, because then I would have been able to reuse my memory and not do a memory upgrade or a RAM upgrade. So that's not going to make sense to me at this stage, because I have DDR3. And therefore I decided, well, just go full out. I'd rather take not a ROG board, but ensure that I've got the Z790 chipset. Most of the reviews I've watched was also with this chipset, so that's what I've seen the guys get quite stable runs and tests out of. I did not go for the ROG version, or the Strix, for example. That is another 20 to 30% more cost on the board, and other than some visual features, you don't really get that much more. I will go into a bit more detail when we actually do the build to see, you know, what the buttons it has and does not have. But I think for what I want to do, I'm not like a crazy overclocker or a crazy gaming enthusiast. Yes, I do game a lot, but my current CPU has served me extremely well for the past 10 years. So paying another 20-30% more for a board that might give me 2 or 3% better performance, or 5% better performance, it's not gonna make sense for me at this stage. This is already quite an expensive upgrade. In US dollar terms, we're talking probably 1,300, 1,200 US dollar that this upgrade is. So that's for the memory, CPU, the motherboard, obviously new thermal paste, and then some screws, really expensive screws, almost $10 for that screws. because it's the, oh sorry, maybe closer to 7. But yeah, that's the conversion kit. Another big reason why I decided not to go for AMD. If I had to go for AMD with the AM5 socket, I currently have an all generation H100, Corsair H100 liquid cooling system. It's still doing well, even after 10 years. And I didn't want to unnecessarily spend the money to buy a new liquid cooler that will fit the AM5, because there's no conversion bracket for the AM5 yet at this stage. I've done some homework and it's not available, or at least not in my country. But with the 1700, Corsair was very nice, and they brought out a small conversion kit that you can that works on any H100 water cooler. So that was awesome for me. So immediately there I saved another $100 or $200. So or 3,000-4,000 rand if you're talking South African terms. So yeah, that was another main reason why I decided to stick with Intel and not go AM5 at this stage. So that's the lot. I will do a few quick shots in between as the build goes on, and yeah, then at the end I will show you some before and after benches. The only item that's gonna be added to this probably next week, because it's on back order, is I've also got a M.2 NVMe drive, like I said, and that's not here yet. So, but it's going to be interesting, because now I'm going to have the opportunity to only do the RAM, and motherboard and CPU, and see how my computer performs. And then once the new hard drive comes, I will install that, and then I can do another test to see how it performs then. So I'm actually looking forward to it. It's not that bad. Anyway, thank you, and yeah, the next time we will start with the actual build. Okay guys, so yeah, this is the box, the case. This friend of mine is extremely meticulous. I thought I was meticulous until I met him. So everything is still in its original packaging that he put it back for me. He upgraded to another case, I think about 4, 5, 6 months ago, and then I immediately told him I would like to buy this off him. So very well looked after. As you can see, still all the covers, look how neat that is. Just bear in mind, this is 10 years old, or almost. This case is, like you can see, really nice. Look at that mirror finish there. And I'll show you the other side now. So there you can see, I really love these windows that it has, and with hinges. I must say these boxes were built back in the day when Corsair was really paying attention to detail. I must honestly say I'm a bit disappointed. The last 2 Corsair products that I bought recently was actually quite disappointing. I had a headset that only lasted 2 years, then it broke. Wireless headset, very expensive one by the way, and also a gaming mouse. I bought it just before they switched to the new Ship with Flags logo. It still had the old logo on the mouse, and yesterday that mouse only lasted, I think, maybe 2 years. Then the grips became the rubber grips became really sticky and yucky. The mouse was still working, but you could just not touch it. You know, if you can't lift your hand off the mouse, it will just keep sticking to your hand. So that was really irritating. Yeah, so I won't buy Corsair at this stage. They have to wake up first, in my opinion. This is just my opinion. It might be that I just bought bad products, but in my mind they should not have bad products. It's because and most of their products are much more expensive than others. So yeah, anyway, this box was still built when they did it well. You can see the hinges is still working after 10 years. It's working perfectly. This box has been, I think, built 2 or 3 times when my friend had it. And another reason that I went for this one is, if I just put the angle up a little bit here, you will see, just tilt it over. So you'll see that it has nice vents all the way through the case, where even though my case, the 800D Obsidian, is much bigger case than this, it stops here. So it can only take a 240 fan, where this can take a 360. Like with mine, you have to remove some of the drive bays or reconfigure it downwards, or do something in order to fit a 360 in there, but at least it can do it. On the 800D, you can also do it and remove the drive bays, but when I do the rebuild onto that, because the parts that's currently in mine I'm going to rebuild into a computer for my wife, to give hers also a bit of an upgrade. But you'll see that it does not have vents all the way to the front. Only the back 2 fans will have vents, and then it also has this lovely top that you can put on top, and it sort of magnetically snaps in there, and the air can still come through in a way. So you can open it if you need it, or you can close it if you don't need it, which is for me a very nice feature. You can also put some spacers in here, and it will actually stand off slightly, and you can still get some airflow. So that for me is really neat, really great. So that's why I really like this case, and I really like the white and black. So yeah, let's get onto the motherboard. Okay, so this is the motherboard unboxing for those of you that are interested in things like this. So that's the actual model name, and yeah, it's the Prime. The company I bought from put in this nice little notice about taking really good care when you obviously install the LGA socket, not to bend or damage the pins. So here we've got a little bit of a package. Let's see. It's just the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, which is quite nice for me, is they've combined the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth into one pedestal or one antenna now. As you can see, there's 2 connectors, but there's this is for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth as far as I know, which is quite neat, because at the moment I've got 2 antennas, one for Wi-Fi and one for Bluetooth, and that does become a space issue if you don't have a lot of space on your box or somewhere near your computer to put the antennas. Okay, so let's have a look at this motherboard. As you can see, it's quite neat. Just gonna go earth myself quickly. Okay, so you can see it. I really love the silver and white finish. I think it's going to go really nice with the case. Silver, white and black. Obviously a nice protector for where the CPU has to go. And then this is all still quite new to me, guys. So I've read up, but I don't know everything. Obviously RAM slots, power. There's some coolers here. This is apparently a LED light. This whole piece here is a LED light feature, RGB. I'll probably just go and swap out the battery for a proper brand one from the start. They always give issues. I've got crystal, and if you can see there, let's see, just get the focus right there. Crystal sound, and then this is obviously there we go, the slots for the NVMe M.2 drives. I'll go into a bit more detail when we go there. There's a power button on board. That's good for me. Not as nice as the ROG ones will have, but at least it's there, and there's quite an good amount of fan headers. I will put a proper review to this board in my description. I'm not an expert board reviewer, so I'm not going to even try. And then there you can see the I/O ports. Just get the focus here. There we go. So nice USB, super speed USB. The antennas, basic audio 2.5G on the LAN, which is quite good. And then I went for the board and the CPU with the onboard graphics. For me, it's always nice to have a fallback if you need to troubleshoot something on your GPU card. Yeah, that's it. So next I'll show you the installation, and then we'll take it from there. I first have to clean that case. It is actually very clean if you think it's 10 years old, but obviously there is a little bit of dust and things that I just want to clean out and have a very, very nice, good start for this new build. So that will probably only happen a bit later. You won't have to wait with the magic of video editing, but there's quite a few things left that I want to do that I'm not going to bore you with before we're going to be ready to do the actual build. And guys, so in terms of the CPU, obviously it's the unlocked one with the graphics on it. I can open it. It's all nice and sealed. Obviously it's not boxed, it's only the CPU, no fan included. They do recommend using a liquid cooled, 240mm liquid cooled cooler with this. I guess especially if you want to overclock. So that's more or less it. I'll take it out later. When we do the actual build. But just for those of you that wants to see it now. And then yeah, another reason why I went with a ASUS board, I'm quite a big Gigabyte fan. I used to have all my components, Seagate hard drives, Corsair SSDs, Gigabyte boards, Corsair memory, Gigabyte graphics cards. But Gigabyte is also, for me at this stage, too expensive. And my board did have some issues when I bought it. And the friend that I got the case from actually had 2 Gigabyte boards in the time that I had the one. He did a CPU upgrade in between as well. He didn't just wait as long as I did. And he also had issues with his second Gigabyte board. So I had issues with my board, he had issues with his board and with his second board. And then after that he decided he's going to go ASUS. And he's been extremely happy with his ASUS. No issues whatsoever. He runs Ryzen on the ASUS board. But yeah, he recommended that I go ASUS. So I decided to go ASUS. But like I said, I didn't think it was worth spending the extra money to go the ROG series. But I'm sure I'm going to be happy. I've heard some good reviews about this board. It's a beautiful board, I really love it. And yeah, we'll see from there. So stay tuned, and next we'll get straight into the build. Okay, so I've now basically cleaned this case as good as I possibly can without completely taking it apart. I've removed most of the drive bays. I've just left the 5¼ inch base up in the top of the case for now, so I can quickly show you there. So there in the top you can still see the 5¼ inch base there. Yeah, so I'm going to start the motherboard installation, and then we will see afterwards. I will see how much I'm going to actually use of the drive bays and whether it's worthwhile to put both boxes in. So these are the drive bay boxes. One comes in here and the other one comes in here like that, but I'll probably only need the one, which means that I'm gonna be able to install a fan here at the bottom. The bottom of the case there's a nice fan hole here, so I'm going to use that for another system fan most probably. So I will see when we install what it's going to look like. Helps using a magnetic screwdriver to assist with holding the screws. Don't necessarily want to let the screws fall on the contacts like I've done now. I also received, well, I have too few screws of the right size. The other screws does not fit the standoffs of this case, so I'll need to go back to the store to get different screws. So for now I'm just using 4 just to get a basic fix. And what I also do is to put the screws on all 4 corners, not tightening it, do not tighten it up until you have everything in and nicely located, and then you can tighten up. And also don't tighten up too much, as that can damage the board. So now that everything is seated and aligned, I tighten it slightly more, not too much. So although not all screws are in, the board is quite secure and it can't move, and all of the standoffs are already installed, so it's not like the board is uninstalled, unsupported in certain positions. You want to press down to install cards. So in the end of the day I will obviously have all the screws, all 9 of them. This is just a locator pin, there's no screw there, which helps a lot with initial installation, and then we can go ahead with the rest of the installation. So next up is the CPU, which is quite an interesting one, and At least there's a quick start guide. I did read through the whole manual, which also covers this, but just to show you quickly, it's very important not to try and lift off the CPU socket cover. You first lift the complete assembly, install the CPU, and then after the CPU is installed, before you apply the paste, only then you remove the cover. And whenever in future you want to remove the CPU for some reason, you have to put the cover back. And remember to keep the cover, because if you have a warranty issue on the board, they will not honor your warranty if you don't send the board back with the cover installed. So very, very important to keep this piece of plastic in your motherboard board, along with all the other things that's important. If you work with the board outside of the case, it's very, very important to always keep it either on the anti-static plastic and on a level surface. Don't put the board on an unlevel surface to make it warp or twist or bend, because that could severely damage the electronics or even create a malfunction on the board. So next I'm going to go ahead and install the CPU. So you first need to take off this little spring. Take care to hold it properly so it doesn't flip back and hit against something. And then we'll install the CPU, and after that I will keep it on, because I first need to remove the water cooler from my other system, clean it up nicely before I can install it here. So I'll only apply the paste before I install the water cooler, the new cooler onto this. Take great care when opening your CPU box not to damage anything. You can see very, very small pins, very, very closely spaced together. So the cover popped off the moment I actually closed. So they don't show it in this manual. But the moment I installed the CPU and closed the cover, closed it, the cover actually came off automatically. Because obviously the CPU is now taking up the space where the cover used to be. So that makes sense. So next up I'll do the RAM, but let me just check the book first. So I'm not supposed to do the cooler first. Yeah, it seems like cooler before RAM, which makes sense. So I'll have to first sort that out. Something that's not specifically mentioned in the quick start guide, but that is mentioned in the actual manual, is that there's a CPU socket lever protection here. It's a little rubber tube, and that should be removed before installing the cooler. Otherwise the cooler or the socket could be damaged, so take care to do that as well. As easy as that, it just pops off. It's just a small little piece of plastic that you can just, it's got a slit on one side, an opening, and you can just slide it off. Okay, so this is the donor case. It's the 800 Obsidian 800D. As you can see here, I have a AX 1200 Corsair power supply, as well as the H100 first generation H100 dual fan or 2x 120mm fan. So it's a 120 by 240 liquid cooler H100. It's not the I or anything like that. It's the first generation, the first one that came out. Dominator Plus DDR3 RAM. Fortunately, I can't reuse that. The board could have supported DDR4 if I took the right board, but like I said previously, it's not going to run DDR3, it's too old. And then I've got the Gigabyte GeForce GTX 1080 Founders Edition. That's still serving me very well, so I won't be replacing that soon, maybe a bit later. And then I've got some hard disk drives here, SSDs as well, but I will see what I'm going to use. I'll probably still use the mechanical storage for my big data, but the SSD will maybe be replaced by the new NVMe drive or drives. So let's call this the donor case. So I basically have to build the cooler, the GPU and the power supply into the other box, and then this is going to become the backbone then for the second computer upgrade that I will do, where I've got a GTX 680 that's currently sitting in another case that's running on an old i5 second generation that I will transfer into here to create a better one, and then that will also go on then to the next one. So I need to take this out, clean it up nicely, and then I will install it into the new case or the new PC build. So I've cleaned up the radiator assembly. I've removed the fans to be able to clean this. It was extremely dusty after several years. It's not really possible to get everything out of there. I vacuumed it and so on. Now it's mostly just metal that side. So I was tempted running a tap through it from that side to this side, but I'm worried that I'm going to damage the radiator, so I'm just going to rather leave it like this. And then obviously when this came new, it already had thermal paste applied, so it was very easy to install it. This time around I have to first remove this old thermal paste before I can apply the new ones, well, the paste I'm going to apply to the CPU, so that there's no inconsistencies and unlevel surfaces here that could actually damage the whole system. So I'm going to do that now, and then I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Very importantly, this is copper on this unit, or a copper compound of some sorts, or alloy. So I'm going to use a plastic, almost like a prying tool. This is not a professional prying tool, it's actually a Tupperware item that you can use to peel oranges. But this is going to work very nicely to remove this thermal paste. Okay, so this is what it looks like after the thermal paste has been taken off. There's obviously some heat scarring, if you can call it that, from where the old CPU contacted, but that is about as clean as I can get it without damaging the metal. It's completely flat. I can't feel any inconsistencies in the surface, so even though it looks like there's a rim, there's nothing there. So to be able to install the old H100 CPU cooler onto the new LGA 1700 socket, there's a retrofit kit that Corsair sells that I bought, and it basically are these 4 screws or standoffs. So those are the old ones. As you can see, they're quite a bit taller. So that was for the LGA 1150 socket, and on the left the shorter ones are for the LGA 1700. So I'm going to first install that with the backing plate and then test without any thermal paste if it works and if everything is fine, because if it's not, I don't want to find that out when the thermal paste is already on. I'm going to first install the radiator with the fans and then the backing plate, see if everything's work, and then I will apply the thermal paste. So now the radiator for the liquid cooler has been fitted, and we're ready to install the cooler onto the CPU. So first we have to apply thermal paste. There's a bunch of methods that I've looked up, crosses, lines, dots. The best method that I know of and that works best is to just use a pea-sized amount of paste right in the center of the CPU and then apply the cooler, and that should evenly spread out as the pressure from the cooler comes down onto the CPU. Very important, especially if it's a new vial, to just test the thermal paste on a piece of paper or something next to it, to just see how much comes out when you push the syringe or whatever it comes in the container, so that you don't do the first time on the CPU and then you may put on too much or too little, because it's quite a mess to get it off once it's on. So I'm going to first do that and then we'll apply it to the CPU. Some has markings like this one, so I would assume that one stripe should be enough. I'm going to just apply the pea size as I envisage, and then it will be interesting to see if it was one stripe or not. So as you can see, it's already At the moment it's on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stripes on the bottom. So if we're done, it should be on 4, but we'll see how it works out. Okay, so I've tested it with the right amount, and it's not quite. Let's just wait for focus. There we go. It's almost halfway. So I'll see, maybe I won't do a full stripe. That's going to be a little bit too much, but I'll see when we're done. So that's approximately the amount. Try to get it as symmetrical as possible into the center of the CPU, and then we apply the cooler. Also take care to bring the cooler in from the center and down, so that you don't move the cooler around too much on the CPU. Fasten the screws as you would do when you're changing a car tire. So opposite corners and then opposite corners again. Not one side and then the other side. And don't let that happen. The screw was too heavy for my magnet on the screwdriver. So now that those two are in, we can go for the other sides. This last one is a bit difficult because I almost have to press down on the plate because the other three are in already. So I almost have to press down on it first before it starts engaging. I'll have to readjust that, so and then I'll show you the finished product. Okay, so what I had to do to get that last screw in was, with this retrofit kit, it's obviously not 100% perfect as it was supposed to be from the factory. It's a 10-year-old cooler assembly going onto a brand new latest socket. So I had to ensure that to feel underneath that the pin is actually sticking properly through the hole, so it comes up far enough for the screw to catch it. In my opinion, they could have made the thread on the upper side of the cooler maybe 0.5 millimeter longer. I know they can't make it too long because then you might run out of thread before it's properly tightened, but it's actually a little bit too little. So it would have been better to make it maybe 0.5 or 1 millimeter longer so that you can just catch it easier. But in another sense, it's working. The new height adjustment of the retrofit kit works perfectly, and it seems like the cooler is well seated on top of the CPU. So that's good. I will obviously monitor the temperature very, very closely upon the first startup to make sure that it's working and the CPU is cooled properly. Hopefully, if it's not, I can catch it in time and switch it off before it causes any damage. But the cooler is still working. I've tested it. It's come out of my other PC, so no issues there. I've run a stress test on the CPU, and the cooler was able to, even at normal fan RPM, without increasing the fan RPM, able to keep the CPU very, very cool. So I'm sure it will work, but we will have a look, and once we're there I will give you some feedback. So as you can see, the cooler assembly looks actually quite small in this case. It seems like this case is slightly wider than my previous case, but it's shorter and narrower. So and also the radiator mounting area is completely perforated, whereas on my previous case it had a solid frame around the radiator area. So, but this one actually also have a small solid frame, so I think it's definitely a little bit wider. And yeah, guys, don't judge the cable management at this stage. I'm not planning on doing any cable management at this stage. It's time consuming, as you all know. I just first want to get the system up, see if everything is running and working like it's supposed to, and then I will partially take it apart again and, well, not completely, but reinstall cables and do some proper cable management to make it look nice and neat. As you can see, just by the way that the CPU cooler assembly is working, there are some cables coming from the fans that I might have to reroute downward and try and get it maybe somewhere in next to the RAM modules. I'll see what it looks like when I install the RAM modules now, and then we can make that neat. But just from how it works at the moment, it seems like I'm going to have some trouble making the power cables coming from the fans to the CPU cooler neat. Might be a bit of a challenge. And then also the fan that I want to install here is going to partially close up the LED lighting, the RGB LED lighting effect that's going to be here. So I might actually not install that fan for that reason, because that's going to close up a big nice part of the board, which might not look that good. So I might make another plan to install the fan in a different spot and see, but at least if we've got two in front, we've got the radiator ones, there's going to be one at the bottom here, and then we've obviously got the GPU or the PSU sitting here. It's going to sit here at the bottom, so we'll see what it looks like when it's done and then take it from there. Okay, so next up is the RAM, and according to the manual, for two chips or two RAM modules, the best configuration or recommended configuration is to install them in A1 and B1. So that's the black ones. As you can see, there's black and grey on the board. So we're going to go for A1 and B1, which are the black ones. Now the DDR5 has different cutouts for the pins than DDR4 or 3. So if it's a board that can take both, obviously they will have made provision for both. This board can only take DDR5. So it's only possible to install DDR5, and the slots will be DDR5 slots. So I'm going to do this very, very cautiously, because it's the first time in a while that I install RAM and I'm not familiar with this RAM. I must say, taking into account the fact that the board is ASUS and the RAM is G.Skill, the shade of grey that is both on the RAM module heatsinks and the board is matched pretty well. It seemed like it when I ordered it, but as you know, color on the PC screen can be very deceiving. So it's very nice to see that in reality it's actually so close. I can't even tell a difference by the naked eye. So there's the first difference. I'm used to having hinges on both sides. It seems like these slots only have it on one side. I don't know if this is the same for DDR4, I'm not sure. I haven't had a system with DDR4, but it's definitely not the case on DDR3. Now let's just check where it lines up. Okay, just make sure, just from the manual, let's have a quick look. There's a specific way to easily tell. They don't really say, they just say press down. So I guess I'll have to figure it out. So the other way around is definitely the right way. There we go, and installed. I'm not big on stickers. I'll decide if I put this G-Skill sticker maybe inside the case. I'll probably not put it on the outside. I try to keep the outside of the case minimalist, and especially because red is not really part of my my color scheme here, so it's not going to look very nice. I'll probably just keep it in the packaging. So if I had the M.2 drive yet, that would have been the next step, to install that in one of these slots. There are four. Let me just zoom out here. So there's one here, one there, and another short one there, and another short one there. And each of them can take different configurations of lengths. The one I got, I think it's a 2280, so it's quite a short one, but we'll add that later. So for now I'm going to go on to put through the power cables, and then after that will be hard drives. of the downsides of this case versus my Obsidian 800 is that the power supply was quite nice. It's just got a bracket that you click in the correct position, and then you don't need any screws really. There's just 2 thumb screws for the bracket, and then it totally secures the PSU into position. Here I had to secure the PSU to the back of the case in the normal fashion that you would usually do. But something that this case has that's very nice that my other case did not have is these SSD drive bays. So this is perfect for installing SSD drives, and then it's out of the way and you don't take up drive bay space. So the other ones use a converter, and then you use a normal drive bay for the SSD, which actually wastes a lot of space. So it's actually very nice with this case that you can take up to 4 SSDs in their own drives, and the backs going to the cable grommets. So you basically install the SSD into it. It clicks into place, very little wiggle room. And then you can just install it. Okay, so basically now everything has been connected, all power has been connected. I just need to install the GPU now. I'm actually tempted to quickly see if it switches on and starts up before I install the GPU. So I'm going to quickly do that, and then I'll be back to install the GPU. Unfortunately, my previous board only had 6 SATA connectors. This one having 4 onboard M.2 NVMe drive capability has only 4 SATA, or external, not external SATA, but 4 SATA ports, 1, 2, 3, 4. So one of my drives are actually disconnected at the moment because I have 2 SSDs and 3 mechanical HDDs. But that will be solved once my NVMe drive arrives, because then I'm going to basically replace at least one of the 2 SSDs with the NVMe drive. It's a 2 terabyte. Currently I'm running 500 gigabyte and 240 gigabyte separately on the SSDs, which is much smaller. And so that will solve that problem. But just so that you note, if you're going to upgrade to a board like this, you're not going to have 6 SATA drives. You almost need to upgrade to the NVMe in order for it to make sense with the storage that you need. Okay, so I've done the first startup. Everything is working well. Everything powered up first time. I'm just going to double check the reset switch. I'm not sure if that works. I might have gotten the positive and negative the wrong way around. But everything else seems good. I did try activate XMP memory profile, extreme memory profile, to run the DDR5 at the 5600 megahertz it's supposed to, but then the system would not start up. So I've checked to check into that. As I've explained previously, I initially wanted to buy the 6400 megahertz RAM, but the experts at the store and few other sources that I've seen said that they're having issues getting it to that. So that's why I went with the cheaper 5600 megahertz RAM. But at the moment, the stable startup that I got was without the XMP profile, which then it's running at 4000, which is not great. It's a whole 1600 megahertz slower. And if you think that my first RAM was the old DDR3 RAM was 1600 megahertz, that's actually a very big difference. So I'll need to sort that out. But for now, I think it's ready to install the GPU. So a very nice feature that this board has is a release switch with a button here, so you don't have to fiddle here at the side with the pins to release the GPU. So it's very nice and easy to actually just do it here. So I'm going to go ahead and install the GPU. Okay, so there we go. Except for the final two fans, so one or two fans that I still need to install, and then obviously the NVMe drive that's coming later. The build is done for now. I'm gonna set it up, and then I will show you guys some before and after specs in terms of performance. Okay, so the M.2 drive finally arrived. It looks like this. It's very, very small. And so the slot I want to install it is the M.2 slot 1, but that's actually behind the GPU card. So I'm going to remove the GPU card and then I'll show you the installation. Now that I have to remove it, I can actually show you how nicely this release mechanism works. So that little button that I showed previously, it's behind here. So I'm just going to press it. And there we go. As easy as that. Okay, so the slot where I want to install is this one here. So I'm going to remove the heatsink and then I will install the drive. One get different sizes, such as 22110, 2280, etc. So this board can take various lengths, but this is a 2280, and all that basically means is that it's 80 millimeters long. The 80 on the 2280 means it's 80 millimeters long, as you can see there. Just get focus. There we go. As you can see, the actual card inside the packaging is 80 millimeters long. So that is it. A 22110 is 110 millimeters long. So that's the ones that's a little bit longer. The M.2 means the slot. The 2280 means the length and form factor. And then the NVMe stands for non-volatile memory express. and obviously it works on SATA, or not SATA, sorry, PCI Express 4.0. But I will put a video a link to this in the description, to a video that actually explains that much better than what I'm doing now, by people that are much more expert on the subject. But that's just a basic summary. Just get some better zoom on the slot. Get right in there. Okay. So just going to remove this thermal pad film, and it is quite sticky. It's done. So I can now go ahead and quickly put back the GPU card. And then we're done. So I'm gonna start this up, and then once it's running and I've installed everything, I will show you guys some before and after benchmarks. Thanks for your time, and thanks for watching thus far.